Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at Solana, and I'm going to be giving you my price prediction of how high I think Solana could go in the most bullish scenarios, but where my sort of target range is as far as a top for Solana. But starting off with crypto fear and greed, we can see greed is up at the low 70s. We did have this dip, and now we are just hanging out into high greed. And really, Bitcoin is going to keep hanging out here until it starts closing above all-time highs. So we started off looking at this chart on the weekly. I think it shows it really well. After Bitcoin got to this all-time high at around 109, 110K back in January, you can see that these wicks have been retesting it. We need to see a candle body close completely above it, and then we are truly bullish. I think when we look at last March of 2024, this shows it pretty well. So you can see a number of these wicks, but until we started getting the candle bodies closing above it, then it was go time. So we've had a bunch of wicks. Now we need to see the candle bodies start to break through as well. So as we are going to get into Solana, this is the number 6 overall altcoin. And this altcoin, this cycle has done pretty well compared to other altcoins like XRP, Doge, BNB, Ethereum, some of the top market cap altcoins, Cardano. Solana has really snuck its way into that top 10, and it's become sort of a staple top altcoin for crypto. But when it comes to any of these altcoins outside of Ethereum, things like XRP, BNB, Solana, me personally, in the most bullish scenario, I'm not really looking for any targets over 500 billion. I feel like 4 to 500 billion would be the ultimate top for any of these altcoins, should they be the best altcoin outside of Ethereum. So I just want to get that out there for you guys. I don't know if that sort of a price target, if you will, is too conservative, if it's too bullish. I'm not saying it is going to 5x and get to 4 to 500 billion. I'm just saying that would be the topping range I'd look for when I'm drawing profits. I just want to make sure we're clear with each other right off the bat. Another thing I want to make sure we're clear about is that as I'm talking about altcoins, many of them top after Bitcoin tops when we have this rotation. There are some altcoins and crypto assets, like we've seen a miner or two, Bitcoin miner that top with Bitcoin, but there are many altcoins that top after. And we'll take a look in the chart to see what Solana has done in the past. But again, going over to Bitcoin before we jump into Solana, still getting rejected off that 109K area. This is pretty good on the daily. If we can see daily candles starting to close that 109.5 area, I think that would be very good overall for Bitcoin. So let's go to Solana and we'll take a look at the Coinbase chart here. So we can see as we zoom out. Let's go to the weekly. This chart here, it only goes back as far as June of 2021. Of course, we had the second of the double tops in November. We can go to the rainbow chart and see that last cycle there was this double top in April and November. But going over there, at least by this chart, it shows that Solana had a top there at around 260 bucks. Now, it's gotten back up to those levels recently, even got a little bit higher, but it never truly closed above, just like I was showing you with the wicks. So we're doing a little bit of just TA, technical analysis, for today, as well as overall price predictions. But what's really nice is that a lot of these altcoins, a lot of stocks, in fact, after this recent plunge the market had, gave us this opportunity to draw our golden ratio indicator, this Fibonacci retracement from the high to the low. You can see that Solana never got back above that 618 at around 191, but it did find some support at the 382. A little rejection off the 0.5 fib right there. So you can see it actually, yeah, we've talked about this before. It came right down to the 200 week moving average before having a nice bounce up. So that 200 week at around 95, that was good support. I'd say anywhere, if you can get Solana anywhere between its 100 and 200 week moving average, at least as far as right now, should we be approaching another cycle top within the next year as we have before? I think if you can get Solana anywhere between the 100 and the 200, would not be a bad place to go. You can see how much it is love staying above the 50. It has not gone under the 50 really since it was falling off. So I do think if we are to see a cycle top, these are the good discount ranges. So one way we can look for price targets, we can take our macro high to low fib. You can see how we drew it from the all-time high to the next low that we had here in late 22. We can take our fib off log scale and we can see some of these Fibonacci targets. So we have a 1618 at around 416, a little bit over a 2x. Remember, when we're talking about these numbers 2xing, don't pay attention to the price, pay attention to what the market cap will be. If Solana 2x's, that's going to be around $180 billion market cap because it has close to, we're going to use a round number, it has close to a $90 billion market cap. Let me get a drink of water here. So we're just going to be using that number for comparison. If it gets to 668, 668, that would be around, maybe I'm trying to think here, like at least a 3x, like 3 to a 4x. So that 2618 at around 668, I'm going to use my phone calculator here. Give me a second. 670 divided by 165. That is, that's actually right around a 4x. So right here, the 2618 would be around a 4x. Again, I talked about, in my opinion, a topping range for a lot of these alts. I think 4 to 500 billion would be it. If we get Solana doing a 4x, 4 times 90, that's $360 billion. So if I did own any Solana, full transparency, I do not. If I did, to be honest, I would be taking all my profits here by the 2618. I think holding on longer than that becomes more risky. Not saying it can't get higher, but if Solana, like, let's say if it did go to 920, 920 divided by 160, we'll say 166, that's a 5.5x. And then we do a 5.5x times its market cap, which would be $483 billion. So we have sort of our topping range. In my opinion, I think this topping range of, as we get close to $500 billion here for the 3618, that would be, in my opinion, the absolute top, somewhere up here. I don't think it's probable. As people sometimes ask in the comments, where do I think whatever altcoin will go? I want to be clear. I think it's important, especially as market psychologists, that we think in terms of probabilities, because in stocks, especially crypto, there is no certainties. There's nothing certain. I might give you all the reasons in the charts that the 2618 makes a lot of sense for Solana, but we're talking probabilities, and that probability only becomes possible if we get one of these major cycle tops. If Bitcoin just stalls out, excuse me, and we don't get an alt season, then it becomes very improbable that we're going to see that massive rotation. But if Bitcoin is to get 155, 200K, something like that, and we do get one of these rotations, as I've shown before, then I think it's possible. So right here, that would be my most bullish target between the 2618, 3618. Again, we talked about that being, between a 4 to a 5.5x. And then we have, between sort of a 2.5 to 4x in here. By the 2618, me personally, I would be taking profits. Let's take a look at well, before we go to Solana paired against Bitcoin, what we're going to do right now, we're actually going to take off some of these fibs. We're going to clean off our chart and we're going to overlay Bitcoin. Let's see what Solana does with Bitcoin overlaid. I think this is very important to look at for the different altcoins. And we're going to take a look at Solana Bitcoin pair here in a moment too. Remember what I said about that rotation. There are altcoins that top after Bitcoin tops. There are altcoins that top before Bitcoin tops. And then there are altcoins that top with it. What we see right here is we see sort of nice movements together with Solana and Bitcoin. So the pink reddish line is Bitcoin. You can see these are topping together. So if Bitcoin is going to 155, 200K, and Solana is peaking with it as it did in 21, I might be considering taking profits at that time. Not saying this factor or this phenomena, if you will, has to repeat again, but that would be something to watch for. You can see how similar these charts are, how much they move together. This might be a little bit of a bullish piece of news for you that with Bitcoin, just with the charts being overlaid, how they move together, how it is doing better than Solana right now, that Solana probably has room to run up to those highs. And if Bitcoin all of a sudden starts going higher to, let's say 155K, that could lead to Solana, going to one of those, a 2x, a 3x, something like that. So I do think it's important to look at how an altcoin moves with Bitcoin. Is it delayed? Is it waiting on that rotation? Is it moving with it? I would argue, and I think you guys would agree with me, that Solana has been moving overall pretty well with Bitcoin. Let's go over to a Solana Bitcoin pair. In my videos, sometimes I do Ethereum Bitcoin, and I didn't know if I charted this before, but I'm glad I did. You can tell I drew this Fibonacci retracement, and by drawing these fibs, we can first of all see, this is our golden ratio indicator. Does it honor the fibs? I say overall, it pretty much does. Now, we can draw from that absolute peak, or we can draw over here. And, I do look at some of these peaks over here, like which one honors it more? Sometimes I do think it's not a bad thing to move those around a little bit. You can see it moving around the 0.5, the 382, the 236. But overall, what do you notice right here? We notice that from 2021, when Solana, the percentage of what Solana is against Bitcoin is so small, it doesn't even register as a single percent. And to be clear, what we're looking at here is Bitcoin has a market cap of 2 trillion. We're going to use a round number. Solana is around 100 billion. If Solana had a market cap of 200 billion, that would be around, what would that be, 10% or so of what Bitcoin is right here. So when Solana is less than 8% of what Bitcoin is, it's not even going to register right there on the chart. So it could be higher, but as far as right now, it isn't. So what we are looking for overall is just this pattern, if you will, of what Solana is doing against Bitcoin. And what you see is that, in 2021, during alt season time, Solana had a good valuation against Bitcoin. Here, it's sort of flat, in 2024, came up a little bit, but it's coming back down. This does concern me as we're getting these lower highs. We do have this downward trend here. In that during an alt season, Solana might only go to one of these lower fibs yet again, because a lot of altcoins over time lose their value against Bitcoin. Now, let's say this is a precursor to bigger things, kind of like in 21. Maybe this is a precursor to Solana really ripping up. I think then when you look at these fibs, you can see that maybe if it's stalling out at a certain area like a 786, or maybe it's blasting through former all-time highs. It's a good reason why we draw our fibs here, that you can take a look at. The 1618 was my fib. Actually, okay, there we go. I was gonna say, I didn't know if that's not really making a difference at all. So let's just make sure we have everything good here. No, it's not making a difference, but that's for my own sanity. So really, as it goes up higher, it may be stalling out at one of these levels. We'll see. But going back over here, I think, again, we should look at Solana and Bitcoin against this chart as well and see what's going on. We'll get rid of our fib here, but we're just going to overlay. Let's overlay Bitcoin and see what happens here. So again, we're looking at the Solana Bitcoin pairing. And when the Solana Bitcoin pairing goes down, it means Solana is losing its value against Bitcoin. When Solana Bitcoin pairing is moving up over the Bitcoin chart, it means that Solana by percentage is increasing its value against Bitcoin. So overall, what we see right here from 2020 through 2021, Bitcoin doing very well against Solana. It wasn't until that second peak that you can see Solana was increasing its value against Bitcoin. Doesn't mean that Solana is going up and Bitcoin's simply going down. Solana could be going up faster, or Solana could be holding its value while Bitcoin goes down. So that can be happening as well. You can see here that with the Solana Bitcoin pairing, it peaked a little bit before and after Bitcoin did. And remember, Solana was peaking with Bitcoin. Overall, I'd say right here, the chart's been pretty connected until we get to here. Bitcoin doing better than Solana, doing better. And then all of a sudden, Solana starts to catch up and it even starts to increase its valuation against Bitcoin. Moving together. And then all of a sudden here, a little bit of a divergence, if you will, where Solana starts to lose its value against Bitcoin a little bit. And right now, Bitcoin is sort of detached from where Solana is. So let's go back to this chart right here. This is our alt season index. We have shown this for a while that alts on the altcoin year macro wise is very low against Bitcoin. And I think this kind of shows it. And just remember in the past, we've seen that Solana can catch up the Bitcoin. So I think that leaves plenty of room and upside for a potential alt season this year. That we're still potentially very early on coins like Solana. And it all depends what type of returns you are looking for. Let's take a look at Solana. Which one do we want? Let's do this one. All right, let's take a look at this. And again, we have the Solana Bitcoin chart, the pairings. Let's see how Solana does against it. So moving pretty well with it overall, which makes sense. This is the altcoin that we're looking at, but we're just looking for any discrepancies to see, how does it move with Bitcoin against Bitcoin as far as its pairing evaluation. But you see right here, the Solana Bitcoin pairing, Solana moving a little bit above that. So, that these moments in time can show that if Solana is moving higher than what the Solana Bitcoin pairing is, it means it's doing a little bit better than Bitcoin at that point in time. But remember, we're just looking at that, and we showed that with where Bitcoin is, that Solana does have a bit of room to run. So kind of putting a bow on things and going back to, let's go back to our Solana chart. Here we go. Overall, we have our price targets macro wise. It is strange that this coin hasn't made newer all-time highs. Let's draw this fib once again. Make sure our fib, it looks like it's on log scale. Just want to make sure. But that we have our price targets, okay? We have those Fibonacci targets. If we take a look at other indicators for today, macro indicators, we can see, this is the MACD. It really hasn't had a very strong move up, still a little bit flat. If we go over to does it let me go to the monthly? Let's try it here. I'm not sure if it's an old enough. Yeah. So even there, you can see the monthly MACD is not really positive right now. But if this thing starts to flip up, maybe that could be something. Let's take a look at some different RSIs here, if you will. Ultimate RSI overbought. Let's take a look at stochastic. Let's see, it didn't load up. There we go. And stochastic, I mean, this would be possibly, very good reason to be bullish or optimistic that this stochastic could start coming up. And when it does, that could be catalyst to move Solana past its former all-time highs. If we go to the weekly intervals, there we go. Stochastic, it may have to reset now. You can see it's reset in the past. Doesn't always mean it's going to go down drastically, or that it has to go down all the way. But that could be something to watch for. It could do one of these. But yeah, I'm feeling, at least with some of the monthly crypto charts, feeling like there's a lot of potential room for cryptos to run very hard within the next 6 months or so. I'm seeing some things on the charts to say that, crypto's been a little sleepy for a bit, slowly getting up there, and it might be getting ready to pop off, not just for Bitcoin, but especially for our alts. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree, disagree? What do you like about the analysis? What don't you like? But yeah, as far as Solana, if you are a big Solana fan, I think again, our expectations of including market cap, something like anywhere between a 2 to a 5x should be your target range, and have a strategy, have a plan now, because when we hit euphoria, it's going to be very hard to sell. If we hit euphoria, Bitcoin's at 150, 200K, Solana is, done a 4x. Are you going to take profits, or are you going to be greedy and believe that it's going to keep going higher, and then all of a sudden the top of the cycle's over and then you get nothing? That is what's happened the last 2 cycles. So have a strategy, be ready for that. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Take care.